source of inspiration for designing various programs, and we have received blessings from him always. He's kind enough for acceding to our request to inaugurate this webinar. I welcome distinguished speakers, Sri Sanjay Kumar Barsne, DDG USOF, Sri Sukumaran, Senior GM BSNL, Ernakulam, Sri Ashutosh Jutsi, Vice President NEC, and Sri Atul Kerelia, Director Andaman and Nicobar. I also welcome senior officers and colleagues from DOT, LSAs, TEC, TRI, BSNL, MTNL, and my own unit of NTA and other organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, telecom network under sea or in the sky have always excited us, both from technology, maintenance, and its usage, since we are not able to access them on day-to-day basis. As you know, high-speed broadband connectivity to the island is made possible through undersea optical fiber cables. Enhanced telecom and broadband connectivity provide big boost to e-governance, tourism, and information technology. It gives impotence to the economy and raises the standard of living. The first such project was completed between Chennai and Port Blair in August 2020. And another such project which is in pipeline is Kochi Lakshadi Submarine OFC project. Both these projects are funded by USOF, that is Universal Service Obligation Fund. Provision of submarine optical fiber cable connectivity will vastly improve telecommunication facility in these islands by providing larger bandwidth. Both these islands are of immense strategic significance for Union of India, lying on both the side as guarding our nation. Provision of secure, robust, reliable, and affordable telecommunication facility is of utmost importance for the people living in these islands, as also from a strategic point of view for the whole nation. Last year, in its endeavor to organize webinars, NTAs conducted webinar on the subject on first anniversary of completion of Andaman and Nicobar project, and we received great response from audience, and always receiving mail to conduct such webinar. Meanwhile, the Government of India has undertaken the project of Kochi Lakshadweep route. So we thought, as we are doing mainly on current topics, we thought to organize this webinar again. So this webinar discusses the impact of services through lead network in Andaman and Nicobar Island over 2 years of time now. Plan and status of Kochi Lakshadweep Submarine OFC project, background and plans of DOT regarding other submarine OFC connectivity, and will be eager to listen from Jutsi Sahab about the process and challenges in submarine cable system. So I again welcome you all to this webinar. Over to Tom.
Thank you, sir, for the welcome address. Now I would like to invite Dr. Mahesh Shukla, sir, Member Services, Digital Communication Commission, to deliver inaugural address. Over to you, sir.
So good morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank and congratulate NTAs for arranging such webinars on regular intervals. And I also want to welcome all the learned speakers who are going to be present during the course of sessions during the day. As has been rightly highlighted by Shri Raju Sinha Sahab, DG Sahab, that the telecom infrastructure is very closely linked with the economic and social development of the not only main urban centers or urban population, but it also plays a very vital role in far-flung area, in connecting the far-flung areas and the population living over there. It plays very vital role in employment generation also, and it has been declared as a critical infrastructure from the security point of view and as well as for the delivery of the governance services for the citizens and the potential development of the business activities, commercial activities, tourism and industries. Telecom connectivity also supports the educational development by way of online education or tele-education or e-health applications and telemedicine, to name a few. Particularly if we talk about Andaman and Nicobar Islands and also Lakshadweep, we have seen that a lot of tourism potential is there. And from a strategic point of view, both these island groups are more nearer to foreign countries than India, as has been informed to me that in the east, Thailand is only about 500 kilometers away from the farthest island of Andaman group, whereas the distance from the Chennai is about 1,200 kilometers. This highlights the point that from the national security perspective or point of view, the national boundary, if national boundaries need to be protected, this is of the prime importance where focus should be given by all of us. Similarly, I am told that the mini Koi island of Lakshadweep is about only 130 kilometers from Maldives, whereas it is 400 kilometers from the Kochi, the main station of the India. Both these examples emphasize that not only with the objective of economic and social development, but also from the strategic point of view, reliable telecom connectivity to Andaman, Nicobar and Lakshadweep is not only very much required, but I will say essentially required. Coming to the main point, the telecom connectivity through satellite naturally has bandwidth limitations. Even the deployment of the LEO satellites, say at the 500 kilometers away from the Earth, they are also not able to provide the much needed bandwidth for the applications which require more bandwidth. Now, faced with this situation, there is no other way but to go for submarine cables. That is the only alternative which can provide us the required bandwidth. Another point is that the scarce availability and the high cost of satellite bandwidth often does not provide us a commercially viable solution. Because any commercial enterprise would like to see that ultimately it is self-sustainable. And if the cost is too high for the alone, then naturally any commercial organization will die for want of high costs and less gains. Considering all the above facts, the government decided to provide the better connectivity to all these islands, both these island groups, and the foundation stone for the project of connecting Port Blair and 7 other islands was laid by none other than Honorable Prime Minister on 30th December 2018. The project also has been completed in 2020, and the project to connect Lakshadi Island from Kochi, known as the KLI project, was approved by the Union Cabinet in December 2020. It was sort of an extension or sort of more development. And this webinar is taking place at an appropriate time in which we will discuss the impact of already completed projects, the challenges faced, the way forward, and the recommendations. And I am sure that the webinar is going to be very useful with the kind of speakers we have today. And the team of NTI Prit, I again congratulate them that they're able to request such eminent speakers and get their time. And I'm sure this is going to be a huge success. With these words, I would like to close. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your encouraging words, sir. And in the last of this inaugural session, I would like to request Sri S.K. Bhalla, sir, DDG Transmission and NGS, for proposing vote of thanks.
Thank you, Jaipal. Good morning, all. It's an honor to express my deepest gratitude to Dr. Mahesh Shukla, Member Services Digital Communications Commission, for kindly gracing the inaugural session in spite of his busy schedule and very crisply emphasizing the strategic importance of robust island connectivity for the country's security as well as socio-economic growth of these areas. Sir, your words of appreciation for NTI Piriti encourages us to design and conduct more programs on topics of strategic importance for the country. Once again, my sincere thanks to Dr. Mahesh Shukla, sir, Member Services. I also convey my heartiest thanks to Shri Raju Sinha, DG NTI Piriti, who has always guided us at every stage of program design and execution. And it is under his able mentorship that Team NTI Piriti keeps delivering quality programs. Thank you very much, sir. With this, I request Shri Jaipal Tomar to conduct the technical sessions and look forward to highly enriching sessions by the learned speakers. Over to Jaipal.
Thank you, sir. With this, we come to the end of inaugural session. And now we can start the technical session. And in technical session, we have 4 sessions, each of around 30 minutes. And I request participant to use chat box to raise the query, which can be taken either during the session if time permits, or in the last. The first session is on the subject of submarine OFC connectivity, background and plans of DOT. And it will be taken by Sri Sanjay Kumar Vasne, sir. He is an 92 batch ITS officer and presently posted as DDG in USOF division of DOT. And he is handling all the projects of Andaman, Nicobar and Lakshadweep. Earlier, he has worked in Railtel on deputation as GM marketing for 1.5 years till January 2014, and then to Cabinet Secretariat up to January 2022. While working in BSNL corporate office, he handled one of the largest tender of telecom for providing 2G and 3G mobile services. Besides that, he handled issues related to spectrum and value-added services also. So hand over to you, sir. Sanjay Vasne, sir.
Thank you, Tomar. Respected Raju Sinha, sir, all my seniors and friends, and thank you very much, NTI Prit, for giving me this opportunity for presenting the USOF perspective on the submarine cable projects. So I'll just start my presentation. So my topic is submarine OFC connectivity backgrounds and plans. So in this, I will cover the different USOF projects which have been taken up in submarine cable. Then I will take up the little bit about the Kenny project and the KLI project, and I will cover the important processes that happens in USOF while the submarine cable projects are handled. And then I will cover up the future plans that are there in USOF for further implementation of submarine cable projects. So, is my voice clear? Are you getting the screen, the slides?
Yes,
Tomer?
Yes, sir. We
It
can
is
see.
good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, voice is also clear, sir.
Okay. So a little bit about the USOF. I think everybody knows about USOF. This is Universal Service Obligation Fund. It was set up in April 2002. The fund is basically, it collects 5% of the AGR of the telecom service providers. So at present, roughly around 10,000 crore rupees per annum is collected from the TSPs. It comes under USOF, and this fund is non-lapsable. So the amount that is collected in that year does not lapse. So it gets accumulated over the years. So initially, the approval for USOF was for providing the basic services. Later on, the scope was enhanced to provide further telegraph services, which included mobile services, broadband connectivity, and the ICT infrastructure. So some of the USOF project, as you may be aware, and you might have also worked in some of these projects, like rural wireline broadband, Amarnath, where the 2G mobile services were provided, then Sanchar Shakti, provision of VPTs in villages, then mobile infrastructure scheme, rural community phone, RDEL, then solar mobile charging facilities. These projects have been completed. And some of the ongoing projects which are there of USOF, which one of the prominent project, that is BharatNet, that is still is continuing. 250,000 GPs are to be covered. Out of that, around 182,000 have been covered. Then the uncovered villages and national highway regions of Northeast region, augmentation of satellite bandwidth in Andaman Nicobar and Lakshadweep. There are some projects related to the uncovered villages, 354, 502. The latest is the saturation project, wherein the 4G saturation will be provided in 24,680 villages. This project has been given to BSNL on nomination basis. Then LWE phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 2 project has also been given recently to BSNL. And then there is one project that the hiring of international bandwidth of internet connectivity. This international bandwidth has been hired for the Northeast region from Bangladesh. So this is coming from Cox's Bazar to Agartala. At present, initially the 10 Gbps bandwidth was had. Now 20 Gbps bandwidth is available to Northeast region. This has been funded from USOF. And then one DSPT, around 1,409 DSPT VSAT terminals have been provided to the armed forces. So this project. Now I will come on to the topic of the webinar. So these are the USOF submarine projects. Two projects our respected member services have already detailed. This Chennai to Andaman Nicobar project, that is, this project is called as Kenny. The second project is Kochi to Lakshadi project. This project is called as KLI. The third project that we have taken up recently, this is basically for providing the redundant connectivity to the Kenny project, because the cable to Kenny in cable, Chennai to Port Blair cable basically is linear. So if any break happens in that cable, again the telecom services in Andaman Nicobar will be disturbed. So this project is still under approval. The fourth project, if time permits, I will just that it was taken up, the DPR was prepared, but somehow it could not be taken up. But I will discuss this during my presentation. As you all know about that submarine cable network, I need not to just tell about many things about that. There is a submarine cable, and the repeaters are there in submarine cable, and the submarine cable, it comes on land, and it comes to the beach manhole is created for connecting the submarine cable to the land part, and from beach manhole to cable landing station, it goes through the land OFC route. And the cable landing station is the main place where all the terminal equipment, which includes our SLTE, our OTN network, is placed, and the CLS also the place where the power supply to the repeater is also fed into the submarine cable, and the all the connectivity to different telecom service providers also happens from the cable landing station. So why the, as sir has told that why the submarine cable is important, and why it cannot, the satellite communication cannot be substitute for the submarine cable. Even the LEO constellation, which they claim that they can provide 100 Mbps of connectivity to the terminals, but it cannot be substituted to the submarine cable. So if you see there are two major hubs in our country where most of the international submarine cables are terminating. First is Mumbai and second is Chennai. So most of the international submarine cables, they land there. And if you can see that our Chennai Andaman cable is also mentioned in this second number from Chennai. If you see Chennai, then Chennai Andaman cable is also visible in that. At present, total 99% of the international traffic, it flows on through this submarine cable network. So the total capacity that is available in our country at present of the submarine cable, it is 103 TBPS. Out of that, only 67 TBPS has been used as on 31st December 2021, and more capacity is planned and under installation. Around 1000 TB of the capacity is already under plan for installation. Some of the important cable which are being laid includes the India Asia Express, India Europe Express. This is being laid by Geo, and then MIST. This cable is being laid by the NTT Docomo. And then there are other three cables to Africa, Raman, and SMW6, which are coming up in future. So it just was a background for the submarine cable. So now, as we come to the Kenny project, before Kenny project, if we see that how the connectivity to the Andaman Nicobar Island was being provided, so roughly 3 Gbps of the satellite bandwidth was available to Andaman Nicobar Islands. And from this slide, if you closely see that around say 200 Mbps to 2 Mbps of the capacity was only available. Now, if we see at our home, we require in our FTTH connection more than 100 Mbps capacity, 300 Mbps capacity for the individual connection. So this 200 Mbps capacity to each island probably was not sufficient to handle the present digital revolution and to provide all the enabled digital services to the people of Andaman Nicobar. And satellite, again, satellite can never be a substitute for the optical fiber cable. So this is how the Kenny cable looked like. You might have seen this diagram again and again. You will see this again in subsequent presentation. So this cable is laid from Chennai to Port Blair. This is 1200 kilometer long cable, and it connects 8 islands of Andaman Nicobar. So these islands, if you can see down south, the island Great Nicobar, Kamota, Car Nicobar, Little Andaman, Havelock, and then Long Island and Rangat. So the cabinet approval for this project happened in September 2016. The cost of the project was 1224 crore rupees. These are the islands. And one of the important thing is that the bandwidth, though each fiber has the capacity of 6.4 Tbps of carrying the traffic, the present configuration that has been the cable has been configured for 2 into 200 Gbps bandwidth between Chennai and Port Blair, and then 2 into 100 Gbps bandwidth between Port Blair and other islands. So why USOF have to jump in this submarine cable project? Because these projects are highly capital intensive, and the return on the revenue generation is very low. So it has to be funded from some of these agencies. So the USOF was the best agency. This is one of the best investment from the USOF for providing this submarine cable connectivity to Andaman Nicobar people. So as our member services sir has already mentioned that this project was inaugurated by Honorable Prime Minister on 30th December 2018. So the foundation laying stone ceremony happened on 30th December 2018, and this project was commissioned in August 2020, and this was well within the time basically. So that project got commissioned, and it really helped the people of Andaman Nicobar during the lockdown period. Some of the children which have returned back to their parents, their studies continued because of the availability of this cable, and plus the e-medicine services and e-banking services really helped them to cope up during the COVID period. Now, this is one of the important diagram. As we are discussing the impact will be discussed further speakers. One of the slides which I wanted to show that before the commissioning of the project, the satellite bandwidth was roughly around 3 Gbps. If you see that around October 20, the project was commissioned in August 2020, and around October 20, when the connectivity was taken from by all the operators there in Port Blair, so the usage increased from the 3 Gbps to 40 Gbps just in a matter of 3-4 months time. And then it remained around 40 to 50 Gbps for 1.5 years period. In April 22, DOT USOF, in consultation with the UT administration, decided to slash the rates of the cable. So the rates were slashed by almost 3/4. After slashing of the rate, again the usage has increased further. At present, around 75 Gbps of the traffic is flowing in the submarine cable. So from 3 Gbps to 75 Gbps in just the two years period, it is just remarkable. So how much bandwidth hungry our people are, and how much dependency has come up for every work on internet. So this shows, this can be seen from this diagram. So similar cases of Lakshadi. There are 11 inhabited islands there in Lakshadi. At present, the satellite connectivity to Lakshadweep is 1 Gbps, and from the slide, if you see that roughly around 100 Mbps capacity, 200 Mbps capacity is available to the island, and certainly this capacity is not sufficient to cater for the latest applications requirements. So the next level of FTTH connectivity is definitely required. So this is how the Kochi Lakshadweep projects looks like. So the cable starts from Kochi. So it connects all the 11 islands, and this cable is not linear. If you see, this cable has already been planned in a ring architecture, and there is not only one ring, there are 2 rings, and the project is under implementation at present. All the works related to the environment clearances have been completed. The cable shipment from Japan is in progress. The equipments have been delivered in Kochi, and these equipments from Kochi are likely to be shipped in some time to all the islands. The purchase order for this project was placed in September 2021, and the implementation period is of 2 years. And but we are targeting that this project gets completed by May 2023. The Honorable Prime Minister from Red Fort has given the target of 1,000 days. So this is ending in May 2023. Plus, after this May, the rainy season starts. So we need to anyhow finish this project before that. Otherwise, again, there will be no work period for up to November. So we are targeting it to get it completed. Now, after discussing the Kenny project and KLI project, I would like to just come on to the point how the things looks in the USOF when we take up the submarine cable project. There are three important parts of the handling of the submarine cable projects in USOF. First is the approval stage. Second is the implementation stage, and third is the O&M stage. So when any submarine cable project is taken up in USOF, the first step is to prepare the DPR, detailed project report, based on the desktop study. That DPR report is further discussed with all the stakeholders. Stakeholders include the CS wing, finance wing, BSNL, and then we discuss it with the UT administration because they are the biggest stakeholder in this. We have to get their consent. We have to take the permission from them, like which islands needs to be connected, how much capacity needs to be provided, because not only they are the stakeholders, they provide all the expenditure for the O&M of the cable in future. So the capex is funded from the USOF, and the O&M is funded from the administration. And then after this multi-party stakeholder discussion, the things goes to the DCC, Digital Communication Commission, for approval, and then finally to cabinet. After the approval of the cabinet, this project is taken up for the implementation. And this is how the implementation looks like. It is from USOF side, it is almost three-dimensional activities. Multi agencies are involved, and we have to interact, coordinate with all the people, and look where the project is going. So the first is the implementing agency is BSNL. The BSNL is providing the work on the nomination basis. BSNL is paid some amount. In the Kenny project, they were paid some fixed amount. In KLI project, they have been paid 7.5% of the capex for implementing this project. BSNL then further through tender identifies the vendors for submarine cable, the terminal equipment, which include SLT, OTN, and other OFC, with the land OFC also laying the land OFC. So the NEC was the vendor in Kenny, and they are the vendor in KLI also. And then the second important part, which BSNL has to handle, the civil and electrical work, which happens at all the cable landing stations. So this civil and electrical works includes maybe construction of new CLSs, all the electrical works related to DG setup, power plants, AC. So all those works are to be coordinated by BSNL and has to be timely completed. Then on the right side, if you see, then we have one technical consultant. Their main role is for providing the environment clearances. These submarine, all these islands are economical, environmental sensitive zones. So they are having the coastal zone management authorities there. So the first, all of the proposal goes to them. Their clearances are obtained. Then their clearances then go to the Ministry of Environment and Forest. The final approval comes from them, MOEF, based on the input provided by the coastal zone management authorities. So in KLI, while the approval was given by the, there were two coastal zone management authority. One was Lakshadi Coastal Zone Management Authority, and then another was the Kochi Coastal Zone Management Authority. their reports went to the MOEF, which they have given the approval. So while giving the approval, they mentioned that we have to hire one more agency, which will be part of the entire implementation laying of the cable. So we had hired one National Institute of Oceanography, that is a CSIR agency. So they will be part of the implementation when the cable will be laid. They will be part of that. So they will continue to monitor if any ecological damages are happening. They will suggest also in their report that any repair is required or any penalty is to be placed. So all that work being handled through TCIL. Then on the right side, if you see that there is one independent monitor also is there. The independent monitor, they are looking after the entire project, and they report to USOF. So they check all the dimensioning of the equipment. They check. They remain present during the FAT. They remain present during the QA of the equipment. They go to the cable landing stations and they just check whether the electrical requirement, AC requirement, everything is sufficient for handling the project. They also suggest that the submarine cable which is being laid is at the right places. Any further digging is required, or is there any chances of the damages to submarine cable near the coastal areas. So all sort of those things are being details are being provided by the independent monitoring agency. We call this as IMA. In KLI project, Tata Communication Transformation Service, they are our independent monitor. Then the UT administration, we have to interact on regular basis with the UT administration also. As regard to the O&M, they provide the expenditure, but during the cable implementation project also for the new cable landing stations where the BSNL building is not there or BSNL building is not sufficient to take the load. So they provide the land also, and they are very cooperative. Without any charge, they have provided land in KLI project and in our Kenny project. And since the transport between the island is generally controlled by the UT administration, so we take their help during the crisis. So they are very they also help in that. Now this submarine, the third part is the O&M. When the cable is commissioned, the project is handed over. So for the submarine cable part, there is no AMC. So the maintenance of the submarine cable is handled through some other agency. That is basically at present, this is for the Kenny, this is being handled through CCOMA. So they not only maintain our cable, they are basically consortium through which they maintain many other submarine cable which are going through in this part of world. They roughly charge around 5 crore rupees per annum, and for any fault, the amount is separate. It may range from 15 crores to 20 crore rupees. And for repair of submarine cable fault is also very exhaustive, time consuming. It may take from 1 month time to 2 months time. So this work of submarine cable maintenance is looked after by CCOMA. Then all the terminal equipments, which include SLT, OTN, and other things, they are also remain under AMC. So whoever provides the equipment, generally the AMC remains with them. So at present, it is with NEC. Then, as I have mentioned that UT administration, they provide the O&M charges. These O&M charges includes the charges of CCOMA, AMC. However, all the revenue generated during the year is first subtracted, and then the net amount is being paid by the UT administration towards O&M. Now, these are some of the activities which happens during the submarine cable project. As I mentioned that the first activity is related to the environment clearance, then the survey permits. Survey permits, because if any ship is coming into the Indian territory, it has to take the permission from the multiple agencies, including MHA or Defense. Then before any start of the project, the marine survey and land route survey is done. This is also a very exhaustive work. This is being done by the bidder, whoever is providing the submarine cable. then ROW permission, land construction. The point number 8 is beach manhole construction. Then submarine plant manufacturing and FAT, so that submarine cable gets manufactured specifically for the project, and when it is basically delivered, so entire length of the cable along with the repeater, it comes in one lot. It comes in a ship, and no work is done except for the laying. The ship comes ready with the cable. It is being continuously laid from, say, it will start from Kochi and it will go to Minicoy. So in that way, there is no further handling in the submarine cable. So these are all the activities which happens in a submarine cable project. So we at USOF, we have to look after that if anything is having any issues, so we have to just escalate that. And some of these activities are not in sequence, so some of these activities happens in parallel also. Now while these were the things that we mentioned about the Kenny KLI and this submarine cable project that we do in USOF, what activities we handle. Now, as I mentioned that the Chennai to Port Blair cable is linear, and the data usage that you have seen that now it has increased to more than 70 Gbps. So if that cable gets cut in any time, the repair of this cable may take 1 month to 2 months time, and this time will be too much for the people of Andaman Nicobar. Though satellite bandwidth has been kept as reserve for the time being, but again the 3 Gbps of connectivity will not handle all the applications and all the experiences that Andaman Nicobar people have got till now. So there is a requirement of laying another cable from the eastern coast to Port Blair. There was if you closely see this, all the cables which are going from Chennai or coming from Mumbai, they are going just near from the Andaman Nicobar Islands. So there was a thought that why to lay a cable there? We can take a pair of fiber from any of the cable, and then this will be sufficient for providing the redundancy. However, the issue was discussed here in DOT, and then it was found that the energy traffic, we cannot carry it on any other international cable because it is liable to be intercepted and there may be security threats. And one important thing is there that Andaman Nicobar, the Navy's major establishments are there. So all the communication of Navy also happens through this submarine cable. So if we take this communication on any international cable, so this may result in leakage of the information. So that idea of taking one fiber pair from any of the cable which is going through Andaman Nicobar and going further to Singapore was dropped. So we then went through the multiple options. Visakhapatnam, we found that it has the rocky beaches, plus it has the naval bases where multiple exercises of naval happens. So the chances of cable cuts was great. And then Digha near Kolkata, but sea is very shallow there, and there is a lot of sand is coming every year there from the river. Then the Puri, we thought then Puri was found to be more appropriate because the soil is soft and appropriate for landing. Then the fourth option that and different route from Chennai, but Chennai can become a single point of failure. So as of now, the project is still under discussion. One part of that has been considered, so that Puri has been found to be the most suitable option at present for laying that redundancy cable to Andaman Nicobar. So this is how the entire the structure of the cable will look like after laying of the redundancy cable. So in this cable, we are not only laying the cable from Puri to there. At present, as I mentioned earlier, that 8 islands have been connected. But while we will laying this redundancy cable, we will be connecting the 8 more islands of Andaman Nicobar, which have been requested by the UT administration there. And one more important thing that we will be doing in this, we will be putting up all the islands into the ring connectivity also. So the new islands as well as the old islands will come into the ring, and so that any failure, no services are hampered there. This is how the cable will look like. This will be going from Puri, but it will be going from the northern side of the Andaman Nicobar, and then it will be coming downward. There was one thought of extending the connectivity from Port Blair to Singapore. So that project, though DPR was prepared, but this project could not be taken up because earlier it was thought that by connecting the Port Blair to Singapore, one international bandwidth was maybe made available, and the BharatNet services in India will become cheaper because the internet bandwidth would be made available directly from Singapore to our country. But the issue was further analyzed here in our DOT. We found that the BSNL at present they are spending around 73 crore rupees on hiring of international bandwidth. Out of that, only 2.34 crore rupees they are spending for hiring the bandwidth from Singapore. Rest of the bandwidth they are hiring from the multiple places from the western side, and plus at present the most of the bandwidth comes from the MPLS kind of structure. So this project was discussed, but did not happen as of now. Plus, setting up of any international cable, it requires formation of consortium and basically identification of demand. Plus, we need to set up the offices there in Singapore, or we need to just have the plan who will buy our bandwidth. All those things need for establishing of the submarine cable. So that's why this project could not be taken up. So this is all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving very informative lecture, sir, and covering different submarine projects of USOF or DOT, and the approval process, the implementation process, O&M part of it, and different projects which were considered at some point of time by DOT. So definitely it was a very informative lecture, sir, and it has been made use of by around 150 participants, sir, who are joined in this session, sir. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
I think the DOT Kerala LSA, they have raised their hand. They want to ask some questions, so that I will be free if somebody wants to ask any question.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Kerala, let's say someone is there, you can unmute.
Yeah. At DOT Kerala LSA, now you can go ahead. I am make you the presenter.
Yeah, good morning, Vashni. I am Vinod Abraham, Senior DDG from Kerala LSA. As far as I remember, when we had planned the Kerala LSA submarine, KLI submarine project, one limb of that was to Kochi, and one limb of that we had planned from Minicoy to Trivandrum, and that the connectivity was planned from Trivandrum to Kochi as terrestrial, so that, as you mentioned, the single point failure may not be there. So what was it that changed that the Minicoy Trivandrum link to as Minicoy Kochi?
Okay, sir. Your point is valid, but actually I joined late DOT in this April only. All the approvals and the tenders happened by then. And probably I'll look and maybe I'll connect directly with you on this subject, sir.
Just out of clarity, because that point in time when we did the project, we had an I2 cable where we had a failure which took almost 6 to 8 months, and that was why we triggered us for this ring kind of architecture. 2 ring we had done, and the land portion also, it was planned for Trivandrum, Minicoy Trivandrum, and because Minicoy Trivandrum probably, as far as I remember, would have gone repeaterless. Now the Minicoy Kochi is a repeated link. I think the Trivandrum, Minicoy Kochi Trivandrum would have gone repeaterless because it was slightly below 400 kilometers. If I remember what was the exact figure correctly. So, but then I think it was changed.
Okay, sir. I'll revert back to you, sir, on this.
Great. Okay, then, Rakshay. Thank you.
So if no question is there, thank you very much, everyone.
So thank you,
Okay,
sir.
Thomas.
Thank you. So now we come to session 2, sir. And it is on Kochi Lakshadweep Submarine Project, OFC project, its plan and its status. And it will be delivered by Sri Sukumaran NK, sir. He is an ITS officer of 1994 batch. And is currently serving GM BSNL, Core Network and Transmission, Ernakulam. Earlier, he has worked as Deputy Registrar and Registrar in ISER and Trivandrum. He has vast experience in telecom sector in different roles. Business head Calicut, Kannur, GM, NWP CFA, NWP CM, Enterprise Business, GM IT in Kerala Circle. So I request Sri Sukumaran sir to take over, sir. And I have started sharing his PPT from my end. It is taking a few seconds.
Thank you, Thomas, sir. Good morning, everyone. This is Sukumaran, Senior GM BSNL. Respected senior officers from DOT, senior officers from NTA Print, my fellow speakers and audience. Naturally, there can be some overlap between the presentations. Sanjay Varshney sir has given the overview of how the approval process are happening. So I will be discussing in detail regarding the KLI project. And before going to that, the point raised by Vinod Abraham sir, I would like to respond to that because I went through the document as it says in one of the meeting it was discussed in detail regarding the connectivity to Trivandrum from Minicoy and then back to Kochi. So the expert opinion was that the terrestrial link from Trivandrum to Kochi will be weaker than the submarine link from Minicoy to Kochi. So that was the decision of the committee, and that is why they have finally decided to bring the ring back to Kochi from Minicoy. So that is what I understand from the minutes. So now coming to my presentation, I think I'm yet to get the presentation.
Yes, it is taking little time, sir.
Okay, fine. So let the presentation come. Actually, those who have gone to Lakshadweep Island, they might have realized the present condition of the telecom network in Lakshadweep Island. So even the WhatsApp application, we cannot have it there because of the huge constraints in the bandwidth. Right now, the bandwidth available is through satellite, and that also it is coming to maximum of 1.7 G. Whereas at the time of initiating this project, the total bandwidth for the entire island was about 102 Mbps. So we can very well understand the bandwidth constraints there. Sir, I think the PPT is not coming. Yeah. Okay, sir, you can go to the next slide. second slide. Yeah. So this is all about the process which took place for approving this project. Actually, in 2014, TRAI submitted a report stating the condition of telecom infrastructure in Lakshadi Island. And in that recommendation, it was basically for connecting only the important 6 islands in a ring fashion to the main, not in ring fashion, it was a linear network to the main island. So but the basic consideration was to reduce the capex. But however, on subsequent discussion, it was decided to go for a ring architecture because the most of the stakeholders wanted reliable media. As it was mentioned, the not only for the development of Lakshadweep Island, it is a strategic location for India. So that islands, those islands should be connected in a reliable media. So ring fashion, it should be connected, and all the islands should be connected. So this was the final requirement of the Parliament Committee for from defense. So then the final shape of the network was decided, and then USOF entrusted this work to TCIL for submitting the cost benefit analysis and the final project, how it should be. So that work was entrusted to TCIL, and TCIL submitted the desktop study in 2018, and the desktop study report was approved, and subsequently the DPR was prepared in 2019. And as it was told on 15th August 2020, Honorable Prime Minister of India announced this project, and it was included in the 1000 days program of Government of India. And then this was subsequently the cabinet note was released in 2020 December, and DOT approved the whole project and issued the permit in principle on 18 January 2021. Sir, let us see the next slide. Then the work was entrusted to BSNL on nomination basis. So there was one bi-party capex agreement between USOF and BSNL. It happened in January 2022, and as it was told, it was for the capex agreement, and the capex is about 810 crores, and the OPEX will be met by the Lakshadweep administration in the form of viability gap fund. That is the revenue will be generated from this network, and the balance amount for the operation and maintenance will be paid by the Lakshadweep administration. Then subsequently BSNL floated the tender, and the vendor is NEC Japan, who is one of the leader in this field, and they were given the work on 28th September 2021, and as it was told, the project time frame is for 2 years, so it is supposed to be completed by September 2023. But as Vashni sir rightly said, as per the 1000 days program, it should be completed by May, and not only that, after May, the monsoon window will be over. The window between the monsoon will be over, and we will be entering to the next monsoon season, which will create problem for implementation of this project. Next slide, please. So the main organizations involved in this project is first is BSNL, that is the project execution agency, and TCIL is the technical consultant, and TCTSL is the independent monitoring agency, and the NEC is the main vendor. Sir, next slide. So this is a typical submarine cable system. In a typical submarine cable system, there are two main components. One is the wet plant, and the second one is the dry plant. As it is shown here in the picture, it can be seen that in the wet plant, that is basically the component in the sea. It is first thing is the cable, submarine cable. Then there can be repeaters, amplifiers, or gain equalizer. So the purpose of it is if suppose the span length is high, repeater is required. Normally, if it is beyond 350 kilometers, repeaters are required, where the signal will be regenerated, for which power is to be fed from the land station. And amplifiers are passive component, so it doesn't require any power feeding arrangement. And the gain equalizer, normally it is integrated with a repeater, that is for what you call equalizing the gain of all the lambda equally. And then branching unit, suppose the cable is to be branched to some other direction, whereas in KLI there is no branching happening, so that is not relevant for KLI project. And coming to the dry plant, the first component is the beach manhole, where the cable is landing in the shore. It is also again shown in the diagram. And from the beach manhole to the cable landing station, where the terminal equipments are installed. So between these two places, there will be one terrestrial cable, and from the cable landing station, it will be further connected to the network. Next slide, please. So this is the normal procedure for implementation of a submarine project. So first one is the desktop study. Desktop study is very important in a submarine project, because the major capex component is the submarine is for the submarine activity. So there should be a at least an approximate project plan before we prepare the detailed project report and the design of the system. It is required. So for that, desktop study is conducted. We will see what is desktop study, and based on the desktop study output, the detailed project report is prepared, and it is approved. Then the implementation agency will float the tender, and the vendor will be decided, and the rest of the activities are done by the vendor. First is the marine survey. So the desktop study need to be confirmed. So this will be the precise plan, making the plan of the execution. So in the marine survey, we will decide the exact route through which the cable is to be laid, and what sort of cable should be used, and what should be the accessories, and where the beach manhole should be, etc., will be decided in the marine survey. And then accordingly, the cable will be manufactured, and then other components will be decided. Then the implementation process, and the marine installation process, and finally commissioning and AT. Next slide, please. So the desktop study, again, it is based on the database and so many information collected from various sources. So here the seabed study covering various geological aspects like bathymetry, So that is the depth of the sea is taken into account. Then seismology regarding the earthquake history of the that particular section. Then the climate, then the cable estimation will be done. Based on this, the prospective route will be decided and the cost will be decided. And normally this is done by some specialized agency who are having the tools for the same. And based on this, the detailed project report is prepared. And TCAL prepared this project report, and various stakeholders had a lot of discussion on the detailed project report, and finally the detailed project report was approved by DOT. The next slide, please. The final shape of the project is like this. So this is the details of the project. Overall cable length was about 1,891 kilometers. As it was told, the network is designed in a ring fashion. We have seen that in the case of Andaman Nicobar, it is a linear system, which is prone to total cutoff, whereas this will not happen in this ring topology. All the inhabited 11 islands are covered in this network. And the initial capacity planned is one fiber pair will be utilized out of the total 6 fiber pairs. And in the one single fiber pair, 2 lambdas will be used. And each lambda is 100 Gbps capacity, so not total 200 Gbps capacity. And there are 16 channels possible, lambdas are possible. So the total design capacity is 1.6 terabits per second. And there is one repeater segment that is from Minikoi to Kochi, which is about 450 kilometers. There will be 3 repeaters under the sea, and all the other 12 segments are without any repeater. Whereas S1 is having a span length of about 330 kilometers, which require amplifier. The amplifier is called inline remote pumping amplifier. Basically, the amplifier is a Raman amplifier. We will see the details of this amplifier later on, and the project completion is 24 months. Next slide, please. So these are the segment lengths, total 1891 kilometers. Next slide, please. Sir, next slide. Yeah. So coming to the wetland part, next. So most of these are covered, but how the route is selected, there are certain criteria, various factors which is taken into account while deciding the route and the length. Normally, the seabed profile will be studied thoroughly. We would like to lay the cable in deeper sea than the shallow water, because in shallow water the cable is prone to damage. So we will select the deeper sea for laying the cable, and also in the deeper sea we don't require much protection like double armored, etc. So that is the preferred route. So accordingly the route is decided. Then especially Lakshadweep is ecologically very fragile. As you know, it is Lakshadweep Island is a coral island. So the coral should be protected. So that also is taken into account while deciding the route. Then proper crossing over. So we have to take into account the existing cable and other pipelines into consideration while deciding the route. then we should avoid certain zones earmarked by defense and environmental protection team. So that also have been taken into consideration. Now coming to the cable type, normally we use fiber G654B, which is suitable for the submarine cable, and suitable protection, double armored or single armored or lightweight protected. These are the different types of protected cable type we are using. Next slide, please. These are the different type of protection. Basically, the cable will be protected against damage and to avoid the water ingress. There are certain compounds which is used in the cable. So details are available very well in the internet. Next slide, please. So in the case of KLI project, this is the criteria adopted for up to 100 meters. We are using double armored, and beyond that 100 to 1000 meters single armored, and from 1000 meters to 3000 meters it is lightweight protected, and beyond 3000 meters it is not there in the KLI project. So there is no lightweight cable used in KLI. And in addition to that, some additional protections are given with articulated pipe up to 20-meter water depth. Then this polyurethane pipe from 20 meters to 30 meters water depth, and the cable is buried at a depth of 1 to 1.5 meters up to 1000-meter water depth. So this is the construction practice we are going to follow. And as I said, we will be using 6 fiber pair cable. So one fiber pair is will be used for the communication purpose, and one is meant for the defense purpose, and the remaining 4 pairs are for the future expansion. And also there is a scope for making it international cable, as it can be extended to the Maldives Islands or further international route. Next slide, please. So repeaters and the inline remote pumping amplifiers. So this is the picture of a typical repeater. And as I said, it is used for more than 350 kilometers. And this amplifier, that inline remote pumping amplifier, actually it is an erbium doped fiber is used for this amplifier. And these erbium ions will be excited using a separate pumping signal, which is at 1450 nanometer. And then as when it comes to the ground level, it will amplify the required signal. So that is the principle of this inline remote pumping amplifier. Next slide, please. So coming to the dry plant, next. In the dry plant, the first component is the beach manhole, where the submarine cable lands, and it is the power cable and the OF cable will be separated in beach manhole, and then further through terrestrial cable it will be sent to the cable landing station. So this is the actual picture of beach manhole we constructed in one of the island. So the dimension is 3 meter into 3 meter into 3 meter. Inside and outside it is shown here. Next slide. In CLS, these are the terminal equipments available. The first, the left side top, that is OCI, that is open cable interface, and then transponder. Then below it is the cross connect. Basically, the cross connect is working on the principle of OTN. Then we are using the power feeding equipment that is required only for the repeater session, that is shown in the right bottom, and then the remote fiber test equipment. So that is basically for monitoring the cable and fiber repeaters, etc. Next slide. Next slide. This is brief about the equipment in the cross connect. Actually, we can take all the available services, whether it is SDH based or Ethernet based, whatever it is, it can be accommodated. Then in the cross connect based on the OTN protocol, the network means the path selection will happen. Then it will go to the transponder. Basically, the transponder will convert the white signal to the colored signal, that is the lambda, the required lambda for the submarine WDM, and it will accordingly make it very narrow, and certain forward error correction is happening there. Then provide some user channel, etc. Then it will be fed to the OCI where the muxing and demuxing is happening, and also it provides for the lambda for the remote fiber monitoring system, and also it will do the dummy lighting system where the lambdas are free, dummy lights will be sent so that it will not disturb once the other lambdas are loaded. Next slide, please. Apart from this, we have the UMS and the EMS. UMS and EMS, I think it's familiar to all of you. So we are not going to the details. Next slide. So now the status of the project. Next slide. So this slide gives a clear picture of the status of this project. We have divided the entire activities into 17 items. Out of that, 14 items are completed, and that is well within the plan of work. We can see the timeline, and also we can see 3 monsoon windows in which the activities will be very less. Especially the last monsoon was very challenging for us. Transportations were not there, and most of the expected activities we could not do, but somehow we could catch up with the plan of work. And now, right now, the project is in on track. Only thing is the remaining 3 processes are the most crucial part of this project, which require the infra readiness from BSNL side, which we are trying to make it ready by the time NEC is ready for the cable laying and equipment installation. So the project is in a very crucial phase now. As it was told, our endeavor is also to complete it before this next monsoon. So probably by May, the project should be completed. Next slide, please. This is in a table form. Next. This is the infra support from BSNL side. Actually, the 8 stations are having the existing telephone exchange infrastructure or building, where we have made the infra ready, except one island, Androth, which is getting ready by end of this month. And there are 4 new CLS which are also getting ready. So the target date is by December we will make it ready, and other activities are going as per the schedule. Next slide, please. So just I will be touching certain special activities related to this project. Next slide. So the first activity related to this project is various permissions. So as it was told by Sanjay Vashni sir, we have to get permission from DOT, then from the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Home Affairs, then the Maritime Board, then the CRZ, then environmental impact assessment has to be done, and clearance from Ministry of Environment, and so on. So all these activities already completed. We are in a comfortable position now. Next slide. So this is the next. This is the marine operation sequence. Already it was briefed in Sanjay Vashni sir's presentation. So I'm not going to the details. Next slide. So this is regarding the marine survey. Next slide. Next. So in the marine survey, basically based on the desktop study, we will prepare a what do you call the approximate route of the network, and on that approximate route we will be conducting the detailed survey. Next slide. These are the major tools used for the marine survey. The first one is the multi-beam echo sounder. Actually, that captures the depth of the sea floor. And second one is side scan scanner, which will give the high resolution images of the sea floor. And the sub-bottom profiler will give the seabed profile, what sort of strata available below the sea floor, that is given by this tool. And then this velocity profiler gives the velocity of sound inside water, which is an important parameter for other equipments to decide the to process the data. So then next is the cone penetration tester. Basically, it will test the physical nature of the soil under the seabed. And in gravity core, an equipment will be dropped from top, and it will collect the sample of the soil, and it is taken for further testing, and it will be this will be used for deciding the burial activity. And the grab sampler also is for collecting the sample from the seabed. Next slide. This was the ship used for the marine survey activity. Next slide. These are the tools which already explained. That is multi-beam echo sounder, then the side scan scanner, and the sub-bottom profiler, velocity profiler. Next slide. Cone penetration tester, then gravity core and gap sampler, and this sample is used for analysis here in the last picture. Next slide. This is the result or output from the marine survey. This gives the sea depth, and the depth is represented by various colors. Next slide. This is the image of the sea bottom taken from the side scan scanner. Next. This is the sample of sub-bottom profiler using that bottom profiler equipment. So we can see that what sort of soil is available below the seabed. Next slide. These were some of the crossover requirement in this particular project. So we are crossing some 5 important cables. So the locations are also known to us, and it is confirmed also. Next slide. So coming to the cable laying activity, so this is the picture of a ship used for cable laying. It can carry about 2,000 kilometers cable, and it can lay 100 to 150 kilometer cable per day. So that depends on the route conditions. Next slide. So this is the ship which is going to be used for this KLI project. It is called MV Maram. And you can see another small boat nearby. So that also is being used for this laying process. Next slide. Next, please. I think these photos are not coming. Sir, can we have the previous slide? Okay, sorry, the PPTs are not coming properly. Basically, the main vessel will not be going up to the seashore. So the main vessel will be at a particular distance from the seashore. From there, the cable will be drawn by a small boat. The cable will be tied with buoys, and the cable will be floating over the water, and then it will be dragged to the beach manhole, and from the shore to the beach manhole, trenching will be done, and the cable will be laid up to the beach manhole. Then from the main vessel, there will be one trenching machine which will do the plowing activity, and automatically the cable will be laid on the trench, and it will be covered on its own. And then there is a tester, so it will be monitoring the activity, and if there is no proper reinstatement happened, or if the cable is not in proper trench, that those things will be corrected, and the final laying activity will be completed. So this is all about the laying activity, and this is all from my side. Thank you very much. So I think now the PPTs are visible, but
Actually, so in slide number 39, 40, and 41, there are no pictures. Even in PDF, I have checked, there are no pics. From 42 onwards, pictures are there, sir.
sorry, probably while transmitting, while giving to you, those photos might have been missed. Okay, that's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for covering the topic in a very interesting manner, giving photo pics, live pics, actual pics taken by your team. So that made the presentation very interesting. So now we come to session 3, and which is on process and challenges in submarine cable systems. And it will be delivered by Sri Ashutosh Joshi ji. He is Vice President with NEC. And he heads the submarine optical fiber cable network business for NEC in India. And his association with NEC spans over more than 25 years, during which he has been responsible for implementation of several projects related to satellite and micro communication systems before taking over the current position. He has vast experience in system design, sales promotion, and implementation of telecom networks. So Joshi sir, kindly take over.
Thank you, Tomar Saab, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And my regards to Raju Sinha sir, senior members of DOT, my fellow presenters, and the participants. It's a privilege for me to be here to present my thoughts on the topic that has been communicated. Mr. Tomar, will you be sharing the slides, or I should do it from my side?
Sir, you have shared PDF, so I can share PDF if you want. Otherwise,
Okay, I'll share this slide in that case. It will be easier that way. Give me a moment. So please let me know whether the slide is visible.
it is visible, sir. It is visible.
Thank you. So let me start the presentation. So I have covered 5 topics. Some of the information that's contained in the presentation has already been mentioned by the previous speakers also, but I will give a little more. I'll try to give a little more insights into those information. So the global scenario of the submarine cable systems, because the submarine cables basically connect countries around the globe and carries international traffic. And there are several kinds of consortiums in the submarine cable system. And what are the requirements of the various components of the submarine cable, particularly the landing station requirements, what it takes to install and commission a submarine cable system, what are the various processes involved, and what are the activities or challenges related to operation and maintenance of submarine cable systems. These are the topics that I'm going to cover in my presentation. So as Vashni-san mentioned, 99% of international traffic is carried through submarine cable systems, and there are 380 systems currently already commissioned globally. In fact, this number is growing every day, and more than 1.2 million route kilometers of submarine cables deployed globally. So this is the snapshot of the global submarine cable map, and these cables are growing every year. New systems are getting deployed, and while the older systems are getting decommissioned. So if we look at the overall market, this information is around the pandemic time, and you can see there is a huge growth in demand in traffic, around 140% in Asian region, which is the region where we belong. And this region generates highest traffic currently, obviously because of the number of people living in this region, the highest population countries belonging to this region, China and India. So it's quite natural that the traffic growth or the bandwidth demand is a highest in this region. And annually, around $13 billion are getting invested into submarine cable projects, and there is close to 13.5% growth, annual growth that this industry is experiencing. And on account of the pandemic, work from home, demand getting increased on the online connectivity, it has helped in the growth of this market. So apart from the telecom operators themselves, the major submarine cable owners are the OTT players or content providers. So there are huge investments coming into submarine cables from these players, namely Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and recently even Amazon is investing into construction of submarine cables. So majority of the submarine cables that are getting deployed currently is co-owned by one of these players. And the second part that drives the submarine cable industry is the data centers. So these players, along with the standalone data center operators, are setting up data centers globally that are the hub for communicating the traffic from one place to another place, and also holding information and disseminating data. So content providers and data centers are the two key pillars of the growth for the submarine industry. Besides the telecom operators, traditional service providers are also there, but of late, the content providers have overtaken the telecom service providers in terms of absolute investments going into submarine cable systems. As Mr. Sugumaran mentioned, he spoke about two components of submarine cable systems, which is wet plant and dry plant, but I'm adding a third one to complete the overall requirements of a submarine cable system, that is the marine operations. So physically, wet plant and dry plant are the components that go into the system, but marine operations is very important in terms of building the network. So the wet plant, you have the submarine cable itself, which are of various types, depending upon the depth at which the cable is laid. Shallower water, you have more protection around the cable, and deeper water, there is less protection. Then there are repeaters, branching units, and joint boxes. Repeaters for the purpose of enhancing the signal strength, branching units to branch out the cable to any other location from a trunk route, and joint boxes for the purpose of jointing various cable pieces together, various different types of cable pieces together. And the dry plant is something that is deployed in so-called cable landing station, and it consists of submarine line terminal equipment and interconnect equipment. Submarine line terminal equipment is the equipment that terminates the submarine cable, and the interconnect equipment is that connects the terrestrial network with the submarine network. Then you have the power feeding equipment, which is required for the purpose of repeaters system to power the repeaters, and the amount of power to be fed into the system is decided by the number of repeaters and the total length of the system. For your information, in case of CANI, it's close to 3000 volts. For KLI, it's 1500 volts. Then there are LAN cables and LAN route section, and overall network management and equipment management system. And the marine operations, the third component that I have added is the actual cable laying operations. And before that is done, there is a survey required, which Mr. Sukumaran also mentioned about. There is a route survey required to ascertain the best path for laying the cable, and the cable needs to rest on the seabed, and for certain distance it is buried. And then there is a marine engineering that's conducted once the data from this survey is available to decide the route, and also to decide the type of cable, each length of the type of the cable, depending upon the depth and overall system configuration. Once that is done and the cable is manufactured, it is loaded on the vessel. As Mr. Washni mentioned, the entire cable is manufactured as a one system, and connected with the repeaters and loaded onto the vessel to be laid once it reaches the location. Post laying, there are sometimes failures in terms of cable damage or cut that happen primarily on account of human intervention, primarily shipping, fishing, or some such activities, anchoring or something like that. And that requires cable repairs. And cable repairs is not an easy job. Again, you need to mobilize a vessel, you need to mobilize additional spare cable equipment, and do the cable repairs. The cable repair itself takes several days, sometimes weeks, but the mobilization of the vessel and the need for various permissions and clearances and other processes related to export import compliances take some time. So therefore, if there is a cable failure on account of cable damage, it takes fairly long time to repair, sometimes several months, depending upon the situation. These are some of the key cable systems deployed in the Indian region. The cable systems that are touching the Indian coast. As again, Mr. Vashni mentioned, Mumbai and Chennai are the two major hubs for submarine cables connecting into India. So there are these players who own these or co-own these systems. Most of them are the telecom operators, and as I mentioned, there are now players like Facebook, Google, Amazon, who are also owning the cable systems being deployed recently. Over here, SIFI is the data center owner, and IOX is an independent operator, not having any license as such. So till now, mostly the telecom operators have been owning the submarine cable systems, but recently the ecosystem is changing, and the content providers are putting in more investment, and majority of the investment into submarine systems. So therefore, considering the amount of investment required for submarine cable systems, which runs into several $100 million, depending upon the overall size of the network, it's not always easy for a single operator to own the system and deploy it on its own. Therefore, there are several consortiums. There's a consortium of multiple players come together and deploy the cable system. So that's one need for this consortium. Second, by nature, the submarine cables connect several countries, and there are operators or owners in each country, and they own a part of the system. So it's a collaboration required among owners in several countries. You rarely have a situation where a single operator is having is existing in several countries and owning the entire cable system. Rarely, that doesn't happen. There's no such example. In India, it's a domestic network which was introduced earlier with the CANI network and the currently under deployment KLI network, which will be owned by USOF, implemented by BSNL. But this is a domestic network, therefore there is a single owner. However, in case of most submarine cable networks, it has a consortium with minimum 2 to 3 partners. Sometimes the number of members in a consortium goes to even 20 or beyond. So that's the reason. And there is a standard cable design and connectivity required globally. So in order to keep that, also you need these kind of consortiums. And finally, for the maintenance of the cable and repairs of the cable globally, there are certain consortiums which offer the repair services. I'll talk about that a little later. So some of the major consortium cables are CME-V, like CME-V6 is the latest in this system. And for example, CME-V3 so far is the largest cable system deployed anywhere globally, 39,000 kilometers with 39 owners connecting 34 countries. I think Africa 1, Africa 2 will be, once it is completed, will possibly be the largest. It may be exceeding 40,000 kilometers. Then Asia, Africa, Europe network with 20 consortium players, 25,000 kilometers. AAG, Asia America Gateway, 20,000 kilometers with 18 owners. And Asia Pacific Cable Network, 19,000 kilometers, 23 owners. The three of them, the top three of them are connecting India also, but APCN is not connecting India. Now, this is the map for consortiums that offer maintenance services. There are actually 6 such consortiums, as you can see in the name. And CCOMA is the consortium that offers maintenance support services for Indian Ocean region, including India. So they have several participants. Those participants are typically telecom operators who are the cable system owners, and cable system laying companies who own the vessels. And some of the vessels they dedicate for repair activities. So there are always some vessel engaged in any some repairs somewhere in the region. So that's the reason you have to have a consortium where you can pool the resources, because it's very difficult for a single entity to own such expensive resources and cover the huge swaths of territory for maintenance. There's also a UJOI consortium, which is a consortium for the purpose of standardizing the cable connectivity. There are different vendors have different types of cables, but the UJ, which means universal joint, defines the how the various types of cables need to be connected, and the design for the equipment required for such connection, which is standardized globally. Okay, now let me come to the cable landing station requirements. So here I follow Sukumaran Saab, two portions: the wet plant and the land portion, and the cable landing station. The wet plant submarine cable itself and the various cable components, which consist of joints, jointing boxes, transitions, repeaters, branching units, or any other amplifier required. Then it is connected or terminated in the beach manhole, and from the beach manhole, the land cable construction is done towards the terrestrial part of it, and terminated in the cable landing station. And if it's a submarine, if it is a repeated system, there is a also uh, uh, power earthing required. So that's also I've not mentioned about that here. It's required to provide the earthing at the beach manhole location, and then the beach joint optical joint boxes. They are the joints that connect the submarine cable with the terrestrial cable. And then there are joint manholes and handholds for regular maintenance. Joint manholes are required because the maximum length of land cable can be only 2 kilometers. So if the distance from the beach manhole to the cable landing station exceeds 2 kilometers, we have to put additional joints in between, which are housed in these giant manholes. So this cable landing station first terminates the cable. It's a cable termination box, CTB, where it gets terminated. From there, the cable is pulled through patch cords and any other transmission equipment based system design into the SLT for terminating the submarine end, and the PFE is there for feeding the power to the repeaters. Submarine cables also have a copper conductor for carrying power, so which is connected with this PFE. Then the other side, the equipment is connected to the interconnect equipment, for which is a cross connect, which connects the terrestrial network with the submarine network. And then you have the cable management system and network management system. So this is a typical picture of a cable landing station. You have the equipment room, several racks depending upon the size of the network for installing the components like submarine terminal equipment, power feeding equipment, the transponders that pump the traffic into the submarine cable, and the interconnect equipment. Then you have the NOC room where you have the network management system operations, and sometimes you have a video wall which gives the complete view of the network. The picture in this slide is showing the CANI network view, and then you have the regular power plant, battery backup, and UPS as you have in any typical telecom exchange. So let me talk about the installation and commissioning process of a submarine cable system. This has also been spoken about in brief by the previous speakers. I'll go into little more detail. So the activities start from what is called desktop study. So the data is collected from available sources, internet, or even currently Google Earth, and there are specific software available which help in collecting this data, and based on which system engineering and design is prepared. for the purpose of estimation of the cost and the various types of cable lengths and other network components, based on which the estimation is done and the budget approvals happen. Then the project approval is the first permitting activity that happens. There is a formal approval required for installing any submarine cable network in any country. That's called the permitting principle. Then the first activity that happens is the route survey, for which there are several permits required. And followed by marine engineering, based on which the manufacturing and the assembly of the submarine cable plant starts. And parallelly, civil and electrical infra, if it's not already available, has to be constructed. Once the equipment is ready, it's installed in the cable landing stations and tested standalone. Meanwhile, land construction is completed, submarine cable is loaded onto the ship, the submarine cable laying happens. This also requires several permits. And then once the laying is completed, the segment integration and testing, end-to-end testing from one location to another location is conducted before final acceptance and testing of and commissioning of the system. Since I think you would be well aware about the installation of the transmission equipment in any terrestrial network and submarine cable landing equipment installation, something similar. I will not talk much about that. I will go into the marine part of it, the wet plant installation, which I believe will be more interesting for you. So these are the steps. I already spoke about desktop study. Then there is a pre-survey coordination required to decide what is the route that we should survey, because it is a narrow stretch of path along the vast ocean or the seas which has to be surveyed. You cannot, it takes a lot of time. So you have to ascertain some kind of a route position list, or RPL, that is called, or a route in simple terms, along with the submarine cable is expected to be deployed, which is ascertained during the desktop study. And along that route, the survey is done to ascertain whether the route is appropriate. Sometimes certain locations are found as not appropriate, then a diversion is taken, and then alternative route is selected. But that diversion has to be as minimum as possible, because it's a huge time consuming activity. Once the data is collected, then we conduct the detailed study of the information collected and decide the final route and the overall system design, based on which the manufacturing and assembly of the system happens. And the first activity that happens before the cable is laid is the route clearance or pre-lay grapnel run. This is required for clearing any kind of debris on the seabed, such that the cable does not get damaged, or the equipment that is required for burying the cable does not get stuck in this debris and damaged. It's a very expensive equipment, which can actually damage the cable itself also. Suppose that the cable landing and cable laying is conducted, and once the cable is laid, some part of it is buried, and post burial it's also inspected whether the burial is conducted properly or not, and that's done by an ROV. And any place where the burial is not appropriate, the ROV helps in further burying the cable. So I will give you some more pictorial information and explanation about these activities. Survey. So there is a specialized vessel which contains a lot of survey equipment, some of it already mentioned by Mr. Sukumaran, and it surveys the seabed and builds a map of the sea, a contour map of the sea, which you can see in the center. And based on that, the actual route of the cable is decided. This red line is the cable route. So there are specialized software and tools available to decide the cable route once the survey data is collected. Needless to say, all the marine activities, whether it is survey or cable laying, has to be conducted during good weather period, because if the weather is not good, data cannot be collected appropriately, and even the cable cannot be laid properly. This is the components that I was talking about. These are the repeaters before they are assembled into the cable. This is the repeaters ready for assembly with this submarine cable. You would see there is a lot of protection around the repeaters uh, endpoints, and it is assembled with the cable is here. It's getting loaded on the vessel and connected with the submarine cable. And inside the vessel, there are huge cable tanks. An entire length of cable is stored in these cable tanks. The repeaters have a separate. I don't have that picture. Something like here. This only. This is a similar kind of a repeater stack in the vessel where the repeaters are stored separately, and the cable is stored in the ship in the tank. So the once a repeater appears, it is stocked in a stack, and then the cable comes down once again along the cable this runway and is coiled along the tank. This is a process which is conducted manually. It is you have people, you can see the people sitting inside the tank, and you can imagine how huge it is. So to give you an idea, the KLI currently under deployment, the overall cable to be supplied together with the spare is close to 2,000 kilometers, and it takes roughly 15 days for the cable loading process, which is carried out day and night. So you can imagine how lengthy this process is, and sometimes we ship several thousand kilometers, and it can take even up to a month or more for the cable laying, cable loading. Typical rate at which the cable is loaded is around 4 kilometers per hour. I would like to explain about the cable landing and before the cable laying process starts. So cable landing is an activity where the vessel approaches the shore and connects the cable with the beach manhole, terminates the cable with the beach manhole. So this process is of two types depending upon the depth of the sea close to the shore. If depth of the sea close to the shore is more than 15 meters, somewhere around 2.5 kilometers away from the shore, then the main cable lay vessel can approach the location, and we can achieve what is called direct landing. That means the vessel cable is pulled uh, right from the vessel to the shore. It is done by a small boat and then pulled using JCB and other equipment and terminated into the beach manhole. Now, in a situation where the depth of the sea is shallow and the distance from the beach manhole and the 15-meter water mark is more than 2.5-3 kilometers, then the main lay vessel cannot approach the landing location, and direct landing is not possible. This is because it's extremely difficult to manage the cable of such long length because of the weight of the cable and other challenges. So in this case, a process is conducted which is called pre-lay shore end, which is done by a small cabling vessel. And this, together with a support boat, lays the cable for this distance before it is connected to the main lay vessel, and then the main lay vessel continues thereafter. So there is a joint that comes in. The cable, a certain part of the cable has to be laid separately before connecting with the main lay vessel. In fact, for KLI project, we are conducting this PLAC operation off Kochi in the Kochi area because Kochi has a similar situation. It has shallow waters. In case of Kani, it was not required. We could achieve direct landing at all locations, including Chennai. So the cable jointing is done using a UJ joint, and once the cable is jointed with the main lay vessel, the cable contained in the main lay vessel, the main lay vessel then thereafter goes and lays the cable, and along with that, it buries the cable using a machine called plow. It's similar to a plow used by a farmer, but much bigger, much heavier, and obviously more complicated. So it is controlled from the vessel. And this is a picture of the plow machine, by the way. It's not very easy for you to discern. So the height of the plow is it's like a 1.5-story building, something like that. So it buries the cable up to certain depth, and after the depth up to which the cable burial has to be completed, the cable is surface laid. It is laid along the surface of the seabed. Typical cable laying speed varies from 5 to 7 kilometers per hour. This is the picture for deployment of a repeater. And typically on a long route, the cable laying happens from both the directions, and there is a joint done in the sea, which is called the final joint or a final bite, before the cable is finally released into the sea to rest at the cable bed. So typically for the jointing purpose, the length of the cable required is around 2.5 times the water depth, because both sides of the cable need to be brought onto the vessel, and there is certain additional cable required for the purpose of jointing. Same thing is required when you do the repairs. So some of the challenges which every submarine cable project encounters are there is a limited weather window available. So, for example, is monsoon in India. The marine activities have to be conducted during this weather period only. For the projects related to Andaman Islands and Lakshadweep Islands, we face additional challenge related to the transportation among the islands, both manpower and material. There's limited facilities available for such transportation. Sometimes it's even difficult to find accommodation. There's, particularly in Lakshadweep, even in Andamans and few islands, there are no hotels available. So private accommodation has to be arranged, or some government guest houses are required. There is a lengthy permitting process that is required for every stage of the project, and it needs to be coordinated nicely so as to avoid any delays. And sometimes the cable landing station and infra is not available. It needs to be constructed parallelly and needs to be done before the equipment arrives for installation. There are sometimes protests done by fishermen. They don't allow the activity along the shore. They feel it will disturb their livelihood and stuff like that. And you have to manage those issues. And definitely there are challenges in the sites itself. Every project throws its own challenges. I will show you some examples from the Canny project. We have totally different challenges in KLI, which we can share later, but I have some pictures from Canny. So I'm showing you a couple of pictures here. This is a picture in Port Blair, where on the shore is totally rocky. There is not much layer of sand. So we had to dig a trench. We had to dig a long trench um, for the cable to enter till the beach manhole and to be buried later on. So the rock trenching had to be done in Port Blair for safety of cable. This is Kamota. Kamota has virtually no beach. There was a kind of a small hill, and suddenly there is a sea. So there was no place for constructing the beach manholes. So what we did, we constructed a ramp along the slope and built the beach manhole close to the cable landing station itself. So virtually that was not a beach manhole. That was a beach manhole constructed close to the cable landing station. In Car Nicobar, and this is a situation which is similar in KLI, we had lots of corals, so it was not possible to bury the cable um, along this path because of corals, and we had to clamp the cables to the seabed using custom made clamps, and similar thing is going to happen in KLI also. So there are therefore several site-specific challenges which require different approach and a unique design in every project. So the maintenance part of it, naturally, you are required to maintain two components, the dry plant and the wet plant. So the dry plant, which is primarily transmission equipment, is straightforward. That is something similar to what you do for any terrestrial transmission network or an exchange, with the additional need to maintain the land cable section, which is again similar to terrestrial optical fiber cable network. And the additional thing that is required is to ensure the upkeep of BMH. It's a civil construction, so sometimes you just need to see that no damage has happened, no cracks have appeared in the BMH. Sometimes it requires a painting job in once in few years to keep the BMH healthy. But it is the wet plant maintenance that is most challenging. First of all, it's difficult to localize the fault where the damage or the cable break or cable fault has appeared. Luckily, we have systems installed in together with the cable landing station where we can detect approximate location of the fault, and once the fault is located, you initialize the cable repair process, which is again a lengthy process, as I explained. And for that, you have to mobilize the cable spare, which will depend upon the location of the fault and depth of the sea at that location, and other components like joints, universal joints, and jointing kits, and other testing equipment which need to be utilized for the maintenance. Sometimes system upgrades also happen, and that also requires certain activities in the wet plant, where maybe sometimes the cable has to be cut and a branching unit inserted or a repeater inserted. So such kind of activities also are required, which require mobilization of the marine resources. Apart from that, environment is another major challenge that comes up, and recently we are seeing the seabed sea levels rising and frequent sand erosion along the shoreline. This is a picture of Chennai. This is not our system. This is one of the older systems where the beach manhole itself was dragged into the sea because of soil erosion, because of sand erosion. This is Chennai location. So this is another challenge for the maintenance of the system. You have to ensure that the beach manhole is placed appropriately so as to uh, avoid locations where such sand erosion happens. But you can do only so much. The length and breadth of the shore and the beach is limited. So sometimes you face such issues. These people had put some rocks in front of the beach manhole to avoid it getting further drag into the sea. And submarine cable has a huge tension, so it can pull heavy loads. So after that, this has already been repaired. They have reconstructed the beach manhole, and the cable terminated into a fresh beach manhole. But this is something that happens. It's not unusual. Apart from that, we have to be wary about fishing activity, anchorage, trawlers, and all that. And that's the reason the cable is buried in shallow waters. It is double armored, has protection, and on top of it, sometimes you also put articulated pipes to provide further protection. Yes, that's all from my side. I'm open for any questions. Thank you. Thomas, are you on mute?
Somebody has raised the hand. Let me make him a presenter. Ashok Kumar Jhaji, please ask. Go ahead with your query.
Yes, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. As I have gone through all the three lectures and attended it very seriously, I wanted to know just one thing, that in the submarine cable, we can cover up to 300 kilometers, as I have learned now, without any repeaters. Whereas on the land side, it is hardly 2 kilometers that is only possible. So why this difference? I think Mr. Tutsi will be best person to answer that. This is only 2 kilometers, that is 300 kilometers. That is my first question. Second question would be that how do we feed the power over this 300 to 400 kilometer distance? I mean, that's something if they can tell about the power feeding arrangement. So these two are my technical questions. Thank you.
Mr. Ashok, thanks for your query. First of all, let me clarify. It's a ballpark figure, this 300 kilometers without repeaters. It actually depends upon several parameters. It depends upon the total capacity of the system. If the system capacity runs into tens of terabytes or hundreds of terabytes, then the system, the length for which the system can support unrepeated communication reduces further, because the power budget has to be maintained. So it's just a ballpark figure and not an absolute value. And on the land part, it's not 2 kilometers unrepeaters. I think it's been misunderstood. 2 kilometers without jointing. A single stretch of land cable can be laid up to 2 kilometers without jointing. Beyond 2 kilometers, a joint has to be introduced, and another land cable section of the cable has to be put in place. And as far as the distance up to which a land cable can go without any regeneration, this also runs typically around 50, 60, 100 kilometers, something like that, depending upon the, again, the traffic capacity and the type of equipment terminal equipment you use. So on a land section also, you can have 50 kilometers, 100 kilometers of length without repeaters. That's possible. Coming back to your question related to power feeding, there is a specialized power feeding equipment that is installed at the cable landing station. It generates DC power, and using copper cable, it feeds the power into the submarine cable. As I mentioned, submarine cable has a copper tube which works as a conductor, and this carries the power throughout the submarine, the length of the submarine cable. That's how the power is fed.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
There is another query from Mr. Binod. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
I'm Binod, DGM Ernakulam. Sir, my doubt is actually doing marine survey. Some of the seabed portions, slope is very high, more than 40 degree, 50 degree is there. How you are managing cable laying in this steepy areas? Any measures for counterbalancing the weight of cable is providing by NEC?
Okay. First of all, such areas need to be avoided as much as possible. But there are certain locations where it may not be possible to avoid such steep slopes. Now, depending upon the depth at which this steep slope is occurring, the countermeasure is deployed. Deeper waters, you put a little more slack in the cable such that it touches the seabed as much as possible. And in shallower waters, you try to anchor the cable at the beginning of the slope, or there is an additional protection which is PP duct mentioned by Sukumaran sir, which will be deploying in KLI, that is put in such locations. But the limitation is that such activities can be carried out only up to certain water depth, typically 20 meters, because some of the activities have to be done manually by the divers, and the divers cannot go into deeper water, though PP duct can be deployed into deeper waters up to some depth. So primarily, the way out is to try and avoid such locations if it cannot be avoided, through slack management, and also through the additional protection or anchoring of the cable at such locations. You try to avoid any damage.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So if there are no more questions, I think there are no questions.
Tomar, I have question with Jyoti sir.
Sir.
Sir, do you have any statistics on the cable cut, since you have vast experience on the maintenance? Statistics on cable cut. First question. Second one is that any mechanism of leaving loops of cable in submarine, which can be used for maintenance when there is cable cut, to avoid joints in submarine, as it has to travel a long length. On terrestrial, we can able to manage replacement, but do you leave some loop length, or simply a piece of cable is used to make the joint? Then there will be two joints in that case.
Thank you. Thank you, Raju sir. No, there is no such process of leaving loops in submarine cable. In fact, any loop in the submarine cable is detrimental for the cable. We have to avoid any loop in the submarine cable. It has to be buried for certain depth, and beyond the burial section, the submarine cable has to sit on the sea floor as much as possible, because if you leave loops, that will surely result in damage of the cable over a period of time, because the cable will be oscillating. So loops are not desirable, unfortunately, for submarine cable. So there is no such way to expedite repairs and avoid additional cable length or spare cable lengths. That is unfortunately not recommended. As far as the cable damage or cut is concerned, there are several damages that happen in certain areas notorious for cable damages in the Straits of Malacca, along the South China Sea, near Japan, because of heavy trawling fishing activity. And fortunately, back home, we see there are not so many cuts, though we have seen a few cuts in off Kochi as well as off Mumbai. But typically, till recent times, particularly in Chennai side, we have seen once a cut happening once in several years, 4 5 years, and there are systems which have been in operation without any cuts for even a decade. So the cable cuts happening in Indian territory have been typically once in few or several years, but of late the number of cuts happening has started increasing a bit as compared to the numbers a decade back or a couple of decades back. So recent times, primarily because of increase in the fishing activity. It's primarily because of fishing activity that these cuts happen, most of the cases. Sometimes some construction work also. But as compared to other parts of the globe, relatively less in Indian region.
Thank you. Last question, what is the normal gauge used for submarine cable? Earlier, the terrestrial cable was also happened to be 12 fiber or 24 fiber. Now the higher gauge of cable are coming in terrestrial. So any reason the low gauge cables are used in submarines?
No, submarine cable. Yeah, it's first of all, it's a very different process of construction of the cable and limitation over there. But of late, the number of fiber pairs in submarine cable are also increasing. So currently, submarine cables can also support up to 24 fiber pairs. That's also now such cables are also available. In fact, there are some cables, repeaterless cables particularly, which have higher fiber count, but maximum fiber count currently supported by a submarine cable for repeaterless segments is 24 fiber pair.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, you have discussed about two types of protection pipe, AP as well as PP. Which one will give more protection, and which are all the places we are using AP and PP?
Okay. Both have good protection as such. So APs are typically used in shallow waters from beach manhole location to certain depth of water. PPs are used also in shallow water, but not from the beach manhole. They are used in deeper waters like 5 meters, 10 meters, something like that. And PPs are also used sometimes in those areas where there is a cable crossing or particularly pipeline crossing. There are oil pipelines at certain locations. To cross those pipelines, a PP is deployed on top of the submarine cable at the location where the cable crosses the pipe.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So I think we are end of this session number 3 by Jupsi sir, and he has covered various elements of submarine cable, its design and implementation process, different permits required, marine route survey, cable laying and cable landing, and in last, the implementation challenges. So thank you, Jupsi sir. It was a very informative and interesting session. And now we are coming to last session, session 4. That is impact of undersea USOF cable connectivity in Andaman Nicobar Island. And it will be taken by Sri Atul Karelia sir. He is Director Andaman Nicobar Unit of DOT. And he is a 1994 batch ITS officer and presently working as Director Telecom, Andaman Nicobar DOT. He has handled large-scale GSM mobile projects in Tamil Nadu's telecom circle in BSNL. While working in IT circle BSNL, he has successfully implemented IT project of OSS and BSS system implementation for landline, broadband, FTTH, lead circuit across India. He has handled IT system operation and maintenance of a data center system. He received national level award for best maintained telecom system for Erode Telecom District for the year 2004-5 and Sanchar Seva Padak Award for the year 2003-4. So kindly take over, Atul sir. You are mute.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
So, good afternoon to everybody. Respected Sri Raju Sinha sir, DG NTAs Presentation, senior officers from DOT headquarters, officers from LSA, fellow speakers of today's session, and all other audience members. Good afternoon to everybody. So I will be covering about the impact aspect of Andaman Nicobar Island of implementing this submarine optical fiber project. So I'll take my own presentation from my side. Toma, you are presenting?
No, you carry on, sir.
Yeah.
Your presentation is visible.
Yeah, you have. So Chennai Andaman Nicobar Submarine Optical Fiber Cable is popularly known as a CANI SMC project. It's a lifeline of Andaman Nicobar Island. a project funded by USOF Government of India. So I'll just cover some of the aspect of the Andaman demography. So area of the Andaman is 8,250 approximate square kilometer. Population is 3,80,000, which is now stands around 5 lakh plus. Total number of districts are 3 here. It's a South Andaman, North and Middle, and then you have Car Nicobar districts. It's having 7 blocks and 38 islands are there are totally 836 islands are there, out of 38 are inhabited, and there are 555 villages are there total, out of which 400 villages are inhabited villages. Overall telecom overview of Andaman is the teledensity is high here. It is 185%. Total customer base is 7 lakh plus. Broadband customers is 4.3 lakh plus. BTSs are 817. 4G BTSs 437 and number of operators of 4. Canny SMC project was implemented in year 2000, conceived in year 2018 and completed in year 2022. At the cost of the project 1,224 crores. Implementing authority was BSNL in association with the NEC. Project was taken up for the connectivity from mainland Chennai to Port Blair and 7 other islands: Surajdeep, Long Island, Rangat, Little Andaman, Car Nicobar, Kamota, and Great Nicobar. So this is how pictorially it is visible that there is one main cable of around 1400 plus kilometers and other 7 islands were connected as a part of this project. Main segment Chennai to Port Blair, it was having equipped capacity of 200 Gbps into 2, and other than that 2 fibers are also were there. One is for the defense and one was a spare. One is kept as a spare. For the other segments, other 7 segments, the capacity is 2 into 100 Gbps. Here also 1 fiber for defense and 1 fiber for kept as a spare. This project was conceived to provide the bandwidth to the TSPs for expansion of their telecom network and also to provide the broadband services across island. Submarine cable project was also conceived to meet the strategic communication requirement of the defense establishment in Andaman Nicobar. So as this project was foundation stone was laid on by Honorable Prime Minister on 30th of December 2018, and inauguration was done for cable laying by Honorable Minister of Communication on 10th of January 2020, and the project was completed in month of August 2020. So approximately the project lines were 2 years, and this project was exactly completed in 2 years. It was remarkable achievement by the BSNL and NEC team, and also with the support of LSA and Andaman administration, and of course DOT headquarters. So 7 segments we have progressively commissioned from July to September 2020, having the largest segment Chennai Port Blair of 1491 kilometer, and the smallest segment of Long Island Rangat of 30 kilometers. Total 2,308 kilometers submarine cable was part of this project. Presently, we are utilizing this project around main segment, we are around 71 Gbps, and in other segments right now utilization is not that high, but now the progressively telecom operators are migrating their BTSs to 4G, and the usage is now being seen on increased side. So if you see what impact has done this submarine project, if you compare from August 20 to August 22, the teledensity has increased from 150% to 185%. So an increase of 23% in teledensity. In subscriber base, both wireline and wireline, it has grown from 5,74,000 roughly to 7,07,000 in October 22. So approximately 23% of the customer growth. And broadband customer, this is a remarkable change after the CANI implementation. Earlier, the broadband customers were hardly 1,80,000. So now which has grown to 4.3 lakh plus customers. So there is a growth of 140% in the broadband customer segment. If we take all 3G, 4G and FTTH and ADCL customer put together. There is a growth in the BTS also. Overall BTS headcount increased from 492 to 817, approximately 66% growth in the overall BTS. And 4G BTS count remarkably increased from 52 to 437. So around 700% growth in the 4G BTS, which is going to happen almost 100%. The BTS, whatever left out BTS are likely to be converted into the 4G BTS in another span of 1.5 year to 2 years period. So this is a major change which the CANI project, CANI connectivity has brought into the island. That there is a remarkable increase in the 4G BTS and broadband customers. If we see other operators quality of performance parameters, there is an increase in success rate, marginal increase of 2% from 97 to 99%. There is a marginal decrease in the call drop also. Earlier it was 2.26 average, and now it comes around 1.03% in the call drop. And our success rate also marginally increased by 2 to 3% compared to pre-CANI and post-CANI. Average uptime. Here it is a good increase in the uptime of the network, 81% to 94%. Earlier it was a totally satellite-based operations. Earlier it was around 4.5 Gbps bandwidth. Now it is more than 80 Gbps, 90 Gbps we are using. So good amount of increase seen in the uptime of the network. So this is our overall summary, which I have already narrated. So what exactly has changed? If you talk to the layman person in the Andaman, and if you go around and talk to the people of different strata of life here in Andaman, you will find that these are the certain feedbacks you will come across there. Earlier, the problem was poor voice and data connectivity. If you see, people were used to struggle because, of course, satellite connectivity was there, but there was always voice was not that much clear, and of course, data was very slow. So it has improved in terms of voice quality and data speed and data transactions. People were not able to even open a mail or website, and many of the people, they say that they have to sit in the night or some slag hours where other people are not trying to just for opening a mail and website. It was not possible. So any project could make a difference that now they are able to send the mail and browse the website at par with the mail link. Financial transactions, if you see the credit card transaction, net banking, Paytm, it was there was no trace of transactions before CANI. But now if you see most of the resorts and other shops in Andaman and Port Blair and around, you see that all type of transactions they are accepting. and the seamless transactions are happening on terms of the banking front. All kind of videos and audios, that also WhatsApp, YouTube, this was a kind of dream for the islanders, but the Canny project could make a difference, and now they're able to enjoy these services at par with the mainland. Here, if you go to the CSCs, common service centers, they were not able to handle any kind of services before Canny project because they were not having any kind of internet connections. So there was no question of having any kind of e-governance kind of activities. So it was an absolutely blank. And when we recently visit, last 1 year, we visited many of the CSCs. Now, if you go to CSC, there is people are standing and a lot of transactions are happening, and they are able to make the electricity bill payments and so many documents related to property and government filings. They are able to seek the help of the CSC. Online ticketing and booking purchase was absolutely, there was no question that you can do any kind of online ticketing purchase. It was very, very slow. So people were very unhappy on account of this. But now all these transactions are possible post Canny project. Then attending to classes and other sessions conducting VC like this, it was absolutely no. And the Canny came as a rescuer during the pandemic. A lot of online classes has happened for the students, both for schools and colleges. And general public and administration, they could manage to face this COVID pandemic with the help of this project. Otherwise, these online sessions were really, there was no question of having any kind of online session. GST filing also, it was not possible, and many of the businessmen, when we meet, they express their happiness because of this facility, because GST filing, they were used to send some of their staff to other locations when they go to Chennai or Kolkata, or they sit late hours in the night and they do this GST filing. But now with the support of Canny, this happens on a fly. Tariff was very high because of the satellite bandwidth, the cost associated. So tariffs also, whatever tariffs were there, broadband tariffs and internet connection tariff, they were very high. And now the tariffs are almost at par with mainland. And recently, USOF has further slashed the tariff by 25% to 50%. And those benefits are also being passed on to general public by TSPs. So if you see, the life in island was really very, very tough, and really people were not able to enjoy any of the advantage which broadband or internet offers to us. So if we summarize what overall impact has been achieved is that it has enabled all the TSPs to go for 4G services launch and migrate their all 2G and 3G BTSs progressively to 4G. And now we are planning for 5G also in Port Blair. Recently, we had a meeting with Chief Secretary for 5G planning. So we are able to conceive this higher technology implementation in islands. In general, it has boosted the e-governance initiative of Andaman administrations. We see across many offices where they are now able to implement all e-offices and other various initiatives of through NIC. They are able to launch so many new applications, and they are able to have this e-governance at par with the mainland. In general, it has enhanced the trade and commerce through the e-governance facility. Of course, we don't have any statistics, but whatever general opinion and general interactions we had, that there is a good amount of transactions now are facilitated because of this e-governance. People, they use WhatsApp and other portals for conducting their day-to-day business. Of course, this educational institution I have already explained, it was very useful during the pandemic phase. And health services also, if we what we observed is the vaccination drive was successfully handled with the help of this CoWIN portal, and BSNL provided FTTH connection at the various primary health centers and other centers where vaccinations was happening. And crowd management was successfully handled with the help of this broadband connectivity at all those health centers. And they were very happy. Health Director Health also expressed very good feedback about this FTTH working. And enhance the tourism and travel business. What we observed that all the resorts and hotels now, if you go, they have a good connectivity in terms of either FTTH connections or Wi-Fi hotspots. So across the board in tourism industry, there is a good amount of good experience generated because of this CANI project. And of course, it has this project has complemented the efforts towards the vision of the digital India. Some of the pictures I'm showing where we had an interaction with the one managing director of Maruti Suzuki. He's also running the hotel business here. He says before a submarine cable, the internet was very slow, lot of time wastage and manpower efforts. Overall satisfaction is business is greatly improved and got benefited due to the submarine cable project. And he requested for Wi-Fi services deployment, of course, which BSNL has completed in his hotel. This is one CSC common service center in charge in one remote village near Port Blair, around 30-40 kilometers we visited, and we inquired how is the functioning of the common service center. So she narrated before submarine internet was very slow and voice quality was not that good. Then after submarine overall telecom services improved, CSC services is now being delivered in an improved manner, and the businessmen and the community got benefited at large. That is what she commented. Overall satisfaction, internet data speed improved, which helped to give better services. Now able to provide CSC services, electricity bill payment, property related services, etc. in a better way. Voice quality improved. Student children in the village are able to attend classes on online basis. Businessmen also able to do business through the net and WhatsApp, etc. So these are the certain good feedbacks we received from some of the localites. More or less similar kind of feedback. This is one fisherman who is doing the fish business. So before submarine, due to very slow internet, it was difficult to upload the photos of the fishes and get the purchase order from the customers. That was their comment. And after submarine, online purchase orders for fish have increased due to upload of high quality photos, videos of fishes. Export business has increased. Payments from the customers are also happening cashless through online, Google Pay. They are able to collect the photos from fishermen before buying the fishes from fishermen and decide whether to purchase or not. Overall satisfaction is with submarine optical fiber cable commissioning business operations have been very smooth. Further, they are about to launch a mobile app in near future for expanding their business. So this is the impact a common small fisher shopman is experiencing in the island. So if you see what overall, if you take the overall impact, what it has brought on for the general public. So people were grumbling and they were really frustrated, and now there is at least a smile on their face. So pace of life before CANI, it was like a total, and now at least they are able to run at the speed of rabbit. So not everything is wonderfully fine. If you talk in terms of collective 360 degree, if you see, not everything is wonderfully fine here. So post CANI, DOT and USOF has conceived certain projects which are intended to bridge the gap. So one project is going on is a USOF project for covering uncovered villages and portion of national highway. So this project is going on at the cost of 129 crore rupees and intended to provide coverage to 85 villages and rest of the portion of the uncovered part of the NH. So it is conceived to have around 124 towers addition in island. Then another project is going on is a BharatNet project, which is of 37 crore rupees, and it is intended to provide connectivity to 70 gram panchayats and all the block headquarters, and also to all the tribal councils. 4G saturation project also has been recently added into our bucket. That's around 140 crore rupees investment from USOF. And that will be for upgrading all the remaining 2G and 3G BTSs to 4G BTS and cover all the remaining uncovered villages in Andaman UT which are not covered by the first project, that is 129 crore project by which is executed by Reliance, and this 4G saturation is executed by BSNL. So if you see overall landscape of the village, we have 400 inhabited villages. Covered villages are 273 and uncovered remains is 127, out of which we are covering as a part of a 4G project by Reliance. Around 85 villages will get covered and remaining will get covered by the 4G saturation project. 4G saturation project of BSNL, where they have been asked to take care of 156 villages, where they will be taking up upgrading their 63 towers to provide 4G connectivity to 103 villages, and they are going to set up the 63 new towers to cover left out villages of 72. So with this, we can expect an umbrella 4G coverage in Andaman. So entire Andaman is going to have the 4G across. All the villages will be covered. And BharatNet also, the progress is good now. Out of planned 7 blocks, we have completed 5 blocks are already connected with fiber, and 68 out of 68 gram panchayats on AFC, we have already completed 45 connectivities, and now these connectivities being used to extend the broadband connections to the villagers in the gram panchayat blocks. So all the small government offices like police station, then primary health center, schools, and other general public whosoever wants the broadband, it is now possible to extend a connectivity through this BharatNet project. And of course, it is possible only because of the CANI project. Otherwise, there is no meaning in having a BharatNet project. So overall efforts are what are the efforts are being created to give a even better better smile and thumbs up from the islanders in 2014, because most of the project they are expected to be completed by December 2023, and some spillover may happen, so maximum by early first quarter of the 2024 we can expect a good thumbs up from the islanders. And the pace of life will also eventually move from rabbit to tiger speed, we can say. It will be a bit improved compared to present one, thanks to all the DOT headquarter initiative and USOF administrator and entire team of USOF at headquarter. This is all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And you have nicely demonstrated through figures, statistics, and uh, through actual interaction with the local resident that how services have been improved, and through the ongoing projects, how they are likely to be improved even more. In the chat box, there are no questions, but if any participant has any question, kindly raise your hand. Although most of the questions has been answered during last session. I think there are no questions, sir. So we have already exceeded our defined time schedule. So Digi sir, should I proceed to propose vote of thanks to the speakers?
Yes, sure.
So it has been a wonderful session. And first of all, I would like to thank Member Services for gracing the occasion and for its encouragement to all of us. I also thank DG NTI Prit for always guiding us. And conduction on webinar on this topic was entirely his idea. And he has always been source of inspiration and guidance. I thank all the speakers, Sri Sanjay Kumar Vasnes sir, Sri Sukumaran sir, Sri Ashutosh Joshi ji, and Sri Atul Kareja sir. I thank all of them from my bottom of my heart for taking time out and delivering wonderful sessions. I would also like to thank all the participants for active participations. In last, I would like to thank Sri S.K. Bhalla sir, DDG Transmission and NGS for guiding us in meticulous planning and designing of this event. With these words, we can close this webinar. Thank you. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.